Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as many of you know, Harlem Network News, and if you don't know now, you know, Harlem Network News is a media platform. We started at the onset of COVID, and we are still here. We are very, very dedicated to assuring that the Harlem, and the Harlems of the world are informed, engaged, and call to action. And that's very, very, very critical, I say, at such a time as this. As we approach this July 4th, celebrating, quote, independence, we have to ponder because we have much to address as it relates to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all, which, quote, the Constitution stands for, liberty and justice for all. We've got to really seriously look at that. One of our celebrations that happens every 4th of July is the International African Arts Festival. And that has been celebrated and continues for 54 years. It is happening July 4th, July 5th, July 6th at the Commodore Barry Park, right there on Navy and Flushing. I encourage everyone to go out, support. I don't know if you can still be a vendor. I did do an interview. You can look on our YouTube channel with Dr. Shegun Shabaka, the chair. But it's a very powerful experience. It's family friendly, a great way to spend a conscious 4th of July. So I just want to say support Black businesses, support Black media. And today we have a very, very, two very special and significant guests with us here today. We have Brother Isaac Ferguson of WBAI. He's going to tell you a little bit more about himself, his shows. We have our mayoral candidate from the Democratic primary, Dr. Selma Bartholomew. So it's a very powerful day. We are building collaboration for media, and this is very, very important and very significant. I had the honor of being on Brother Isaac's show pre the Democratic mayoral primary and post. And in the post, Dr. Selma Bartholomew was there. And I think that's extremely significant because we don't expect, and congratulations, Dr. Bartholomew, for winning in running that race. I congratulate you for that. I support you in the fact that you've done that and further support that you're here. You're still here. You didn't run for election and then we just don't see you. You know, it's not that. You're in this for the long run. Okay, so I think that's very significant. So, Brother Isaac, please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and whose you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to come to Harlem Network News, Terri Wisdom. Like I said, it truly is wonderful to be able to come here and speak to my people. That's always a pleasure. I am someone who has dedicated their life to informing and educating my people, making them aware of the issues of the day and also the history so that they would know how we arrive where we are today. And that's what we do at WBAI. I am the host of the Urban Voices and Beyond show on Sundays, 10 to 11. Also the host of the What's Going On morning show, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. every Tuesday, when I deal with all of the current issues, the politics of the day, the budget bills, the mayoral race. That's what I had yourself and
Okay.
Selma. I call her Dr. Selma because she's Dr. Selma Bartholomew. Too long a last name for somebody with a small brain like mine to say all the time. So I simply call her Dr. Selma. And it's my pleasure to be here with her today. I was impressed that both yourself and her are two really, really brilliant Black women. And I have 10 sisters.
Oh, all right. I'm loving it. Okay.
I'm the first boy after 7 girls.
Whoa. So you're seasoned.
My mother and father did universe. And so, I receive a lot of love from the opposite sex, which is the 11 women, my mother and my 10 sisters who raised me. And it's always a pleasure to be with women like yourself. I remember right here on the election day, I covered the election from out in South Queens and Rockaways for WBAI 99.5
Mhm.
FM. And one of the things I notice every single year when I go into the election sites, always black women in there. I was out in Atlanta for some elections, same thing. Alabama, same thing. Louisville, Kentucky, same thing. Everywhere across this country, black women anchor the electoral process. You know that, Terri Wisdom. And it's
Okay.
because,
I think this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom, and I'm here with our, just of WBAI, Brother Isaac Ferguson. I mean, a legend. And I am also here with Dr. Selma Bartholomew, who ran a great race in the mayoral candidate. But I think you may be a little bit prejudiced. I mean, having 10 sisters, I mean, you're an expert. You're an
oh, no,
expert. And it's wonderful that you were showered with such love.
a lot of love.
Amazing. I love
Still
it.
am, still am.
Thank
But I
you.
was saying that it's probably because black people in this country fought so hard for the right to vote that they truly understand how important it is. And that's the reason why you have so many black women. You have a few black men, but so many black women anchoring the electoral process on voting sites around this country year after year. Am I right or wrong, Terry?
Yeah,
You know,
I think that is true. And I think in a lot of senses, I never think of the division of the black men, the black women. I don't think in that mindset, but I also think that we have to understand that black women are the mothers of the earth.
mm-hmm,
Everybody came from a mother. So it's
right,
a whole another level in terms of what mothers do, what fathers do. And that may have something to do with it. But it's very important that, and I won't say that we're equally yoked because each one brings a different, something different, but it's important that we're yoked. To me, that is important. The family is important, and that has to do with some of the destruction that is happening today of our Black race.
very, very important. Like Queen Latifah sang, unity, unity, between black man and black woman, very, very, very critically important matter. But I was so disturbed by the Sean Diddy Combs trial. You mentioned that.
Yes, yes. And I just want to give not even a disclaimer, but we are going to talk about the New York City budget, which just passed, but it's very critical that a Harlem Network News and a WBAI and a Dr. Selma Bartholomew, that we weigh in on what is happening, what
Yeah,
is in the times of happening. And right now, since yesterday, with Sean Puffy, Combs, really all charges were pretty much dropped except for two. They were thinking that he could have potentially been let out of jail yesterday, but that didn't happen. It's not going to happen until he's sentenced. But this is something that we've got to look at because it's impactful to us. It deals with a music mogul who we basically have held. It deals with lots of money. It deals with morality. It deals with racial in terms of how, even with a case that is way out there like this, that there are differences in terms of how a Black person is treated, how a white person, so we've got to do a deep dive, because one of the things that is happening now is that media drives what people think, what people see, what people hear, what people do. And so Harlem Network News and WBAI's and our brother Isaac, we have a lot of work to do to make
Oh,
sure
yes.
that people are clear. So go ahead, brother Isaac, weigh
Well,
in.
I was saying that also because Sean Combs is a son of Harlem. His mother is a Jamaican immigrant. She worked hard. I believe she was a home health aide or someone that worked in health, in the health field like that.
Mhm.
Raised him. He attended Howard University. She sent him to college. He got a
Yes.
good education. Years ago, I got to spend quite a bit of time with him and his mother when he was tried. That was about 10 years back when he was charged with himself and the rapper Shine and his bodyguard, a guy called Wolf Jones, I believe was his name, were
Mm,
tried downtown for shooting up a club.
mm,
Uh,
Yes.
and I covered that case. I was there every day in court taking notes. Working usually as a freelance writer, hoping to sell an article to this
beautiful.
magazine or that. And a very slightly built guy, quite with an unassuming appearance. He's not a towering figure that if he walks into a room, he would bring the entire place to a standstill. You probably wouldn't even notice him, but for the fact that he's Sean
Yes.
Puffy. Very, very slight and easygoing, standing in a corner chewing a toothpick. But
Okay.
his whole behavior is indicative of many, many powerful men in the industry, both in the entertainment industry and in business,
Mm-hmm.
corporate world, who use their power and influence to exploit women. And women, understandably, are like to them low-hanging fruit. Even Donald Trump, remember the incident on the bus where he bragged about grabbing women by their privates and so on?
Yes.
So women is part of the spoils
Mm-hmm.
of success and of having climbed the ladder, the spoils of the capitalistic war or the corporate war or whatever. And the winners get the women. Or not get the women, but take the women. So
Right.
Yeah.
so Puffy is indicative of that. He got lost in that. He got lost drunk in his own power and his feeling that he can do anything he wants and that he can disrespect women to that extent. I mean, some of the things that really upset me and I found difficult to handle emotionally is not just the beating he put on Cassie Ventura, but when the testimony came out that she had didn't want her mother to know about it. Oh God, people have a special relationship with mom. And when she did find the guts to go and tell her mom and tell her mom what was going on, and her mom contacted Sean Diddy Combs, he told her mom she had to pay him back all the
$20,000.
money that he
Yeah.
had spent on her daughter.
Yes.
And that poor, desperate woman mortgaged her house
Yes.
Mm.
and got $20,000 and sent it to Sean Combs. Well, the testimony is that he did give it back to her. But to put someone's mother through that shows a person who had lost all empathy, all morality,
Mm-hmm.
had become a shell
Yeah.
of a person because of the environment he was in, the money, the power, the glamour. Everyone calling him is Jesus Christ because of his success.
I don't think it was
Okay.
the money. I have to be
Okay.
honest.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Selma
so much. Yeah.
Bartholomew. Weigh in.
Well,
Go
first,
ahead.
thank you for having me. I think that this is who he is. I think that we would like to, see him as someone who is right, the glitter and the glam, the person who we see in terms of the photos, right? But when somebody is such a sexually violent person, you don't just show up like that. Maybe the money allows you to do it at another level.
Right.
Culture of being a pimp, right? And showing up and exploiting women is something that people do, whether they have money, if that is who they are and how they're showing up in the world. They just get to do it at such a higher level. And it's sad that there were so many people around him and around her that couldn't step in to keep her safe, to keep others safe. And I think what we saw in video was just a slice of a much deeper narcissistic personality. And as I think about him in terms of the public figure and what I want to say to people, especially people of color, no other group, no other cultural group allows their children to sing about them and to call them names. No other group does it, but we have allowed it with this rap culture. We have allowed it. And it's just indicative, right, of a deeper culture of the sexualization of our children and the exploitation of our children. So I think this is who he is. You know, I remember 1991 very clearly in my head because my brothers went to City College. I grew up in Harlem right down the hill. And people forget that in 1991, when he had that concert, how many children, you know, young people had lost their lives. Now, he wasn't charged with it, but it certainly was reflective, I think, of his leadership and, you know, how he thought about, you know, people. And so, and I could have been one of those individuals at that time who might have lost my life because I was on the City College campus a lot. So that to me in 91 really kind of, you know, set my impression of who he was as a person. But yeah, I grew up with strong family, but it doesn't mean that people don't necessarily have that sense of sexual exploitation. The other thing we haven't talked about as a Black community that we're missing with this, oftentimes people who abuse people sexually were also abused themselves.
Right.
Abuse themselves, right? And in our Black culture, we think it's okay when a man, a young man in particular, has early sexual relationships with somebody older. We don't see it as sexual abuse. You know, we kind of say, oh, that's okay. You're kind of getting your, you know, your oats or whatever, but it's something much more deeper, I think, that we shouldn't miss the opportunity to talk about as a community.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's very interesting that while the media, the mainstream media is speaking about it on a whole nother level, here at Harlem Network News, we're getting into the roots of it. We're getting into the guts of it, because one of the things that has happened, and I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News. I'm here with Brother Isaac Ferguson of WBAI. I'm here with Dr. Selma Bartholomew, who was in the race for the Democratic mayoral primary. And we are talking about the Sean Puffy Combs trial that is taking over. But it is about more than that, because we know when rap first started out, it was conscious. We know that, you know, music came out of, and I listened to it very, very often. Gil Scott-Heron was a classmate of mine at Lincoln University. I was there when the band began. My son's godmother is in the band. I used to get rides home with Gil Scott-Heron from Lincoln, which was primarily a male school at that time, and read a lot of his books when they were in notebooks. So that, even if you listen to Gil Scott-Heron radio now, and he went through a lot of trials and tribulations himself, but it's conscious music, it's information. Back even then, he was talking about no knock, you know, in terms of that happening, the projection of that, the thought of that. And rap, when it first started, was about consciousness. It was swelling up from the people. But we have to understand that money controls a lot in this country. So the rap industry, what you're hearing now, this drill music, which is kill music, and all of the degradation of women, there is money, and mostly, quote, white money, that is pushing in, making money off of this. And, you know, people that are, you know, talented or whatever are being preyed on and doing that kind of music, which music really can impact what people think, what people do. So this right now is about more than Sean Puffy Combs, and it's about a culture in America, be it politicians, public officials, music people, actors, you know, people using money to exploit other people. So
Yes.
it's a morality thing. And we've got to look at that. And as people are throwing around $20 million, there's other people that are starving and trying to figure how they can eat, and they're working hard. So it's the crux of this that we have to get to, because in a way, Sean Puffy Combs is a victim, because what he had, he hasn't taken it and put it out there to help the people or the world in that kind of sense. So that's, to me, what we really need to talk about. That's what we need to talk about. And media is exploiting this because money's being made off of all the stuff that they're throwing around.
The corporate world.
Yes.
It's a different, it's just one of the aspects of the exploitation of sex and violence, the selling
Absolutely.
of sex and violence. I remember back in the early 90s, when rap was just, the white world had become aware that they can make money off of selling this image of black men as violent inner city gangsters and sex, all of that. I was in Miami, and they were having one of the hip hop conventions out there, and they were setting up boom boxes in different neighborhoods and playing the music, taking the music basically to the communities. And white money had begun to be invested in the business to help the rappers and the producers do that. And I remember I was traveling through these villages outside Miami, trying to find the location where there was one of these rap events taking place. This is just DJs and so on, not live performers, playing music loud with big speakers and so on in various communities. And I turned a corner. And when I turned that corner in my truck, the music hit me. And what hit me just at that moment was a string, it was a Sunday, a string of obscenity, of obscene language that you cannot believe. F this and mother that coming out of the boombox to beats.
Exactly.
I was ashamed.
Yeah.
I was ashamed as a black man.
Yeah.
It hit me so hard. I stopped my truck. I parked there for a while and I'm listening. And this was in a neighborhood that was white, predominantly white.
Mm.
And I'm asking myself, is this what we want to bring? What we black people, my young black people want to bring to the world?
Exactly.
Is this how we want to represent ourselves? It really bring me to a stop. And I didn't go back to any of these events for a while. I didn't even want to function as a writer. I promoted reggae a lot. I promoted different types of music, Afro beats and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I saw how Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and those guys become public enemies.
Right.
People from the corporate world even came to me and say, Isaac Ferguson, why are you putting your life your neck on the line for people like Bob Marley and Peter Tosh? You always are wrong with these people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not Jamaican. You don't have any skin in the game. And powerful people want to enter the political attitude in the music. Now, this was as reggae wind down in the late 80s and hip hop began to take over as the popular music of the world. And they said, powerful people want to enter the political attitude in the music and blood is going to run.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time you put some distance between yourself and Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and those people. Mm-hmm. So you see, as a person who moves around the world a lot and get to hear various aspects of things and analyze that, I can see the progression. And as the white money came in, what they begin to give preference to and put money into are those, not your KRS ones and so on, who were trying to maintain some consciousness and some social awareness in the music. But the more vulgar sex and violence aspects begin to be bought. And so that encourages a person like, let's say, a Sean Diddy Combs, who's a producer who wants to get rich, who wants to make it like everybody else. It would influence the direction such a person takes in terms of what type of music they put out. And then what type of behavior they themselves
Yeah.
engage in.
And I
Mhm.
think that the industry
Yeah.
didn't check him either, right? Because if he's making money for them and they know that this is his personality, that this is what he has perpetuated behind the scenes, right? Like they also kept him safe. You cannot tell me that other people did not see this, that were close to him, has come out, that they didn't know, they did know. I don't care what they say, but at the end of the day, they wanted to keep making money. And this is something that I'm hoping that it's not a missed opportunity. And I thank you so much, phenomenal woman wisdom. Thank you so much for being, you know, a voice for this, right? To be able to have
Yes. It's a lot of people have died. A lot of people have been abused. And
Mhm.
I think it's a very interesting time. It's a hard time, but it's an interesting time. I had the honor of going to see the play on Broadway last night, Purpose. And that is a play written by Brandon Jacob Jenkins and directed by Felicia Rashad. And it really brings up an amazing amount of issues, you know, things that are hidden, things that people don't say, be it in their family, and not speaking truth to power. And I take that to a greater level in terms of what we're dealing with politically. And it is hard because a majority of the people are struggling and don't have money. So it makes people question their self as to, am I good enough? Does what I have to say matter? Do I matter? Because everyone is making me feel that I am not valid. As Black people step out to do Black media or businesses, the pushback is amazing, you know, in terms of just not being included. So I think that this is the world we live in, and we also have to be conscious of the future, because there used to be disclaimers and there wasn't really cursing on radio or TV or any of those things. But a lot of this music, the music has a beat, it has a drum, it can affect like people's heart, it can affect them. We know that with Shaka Zulu, like the white people could not handle the drums, and that helped to win that war. So music is a powerful thing. And a lot of this drill music, the beat is so intoxicating, but what are the words? And there are children 5 years old running around saying all of this stuff. They may not even know what it is, but the music is sexual innuendos. And, you know, there was a war on this kind of ugly rap, and this perpetuates drugs, mental illness, a lot of things. So we've got to step in there. And, you know, Sean Puffy Combs, in a lot of ways, is a victim. You know, he's a victimizer, but he's also a victim of this society and what it is.
He was seduced into being a mass marketeer for vulgarity, and so vulgar behavior was nothing to him. It became just part of
Normal.
his whole game. And so that's what we have. I did not expect him to walk. I've been saying for months, even on my show, that it's going to be many years before Sean Combs walked the sidewalk again. And I had a lot of arguments with Black people who tell me, no, Puffy's going to be out. He have a lot of money. But the government, the prosecutors, went to pains to paint him as a person of violence, who is capable of violence and who will wreak violence on people in revenge or in order to silence them should they come out. They intentionally overcharge him as a strategy because they know. I've been saying for months now that he's not going to be found guilty of racketeering because he didn't set up Bad Boy Records as a racketeer, and the people who helped him didn't come to Bad Boy Records saying, "Let me go and work for the mob," like if you join the mafia. They
Right.
came to work in the record business. They came to work in the music business. And intent is very important in this type of matter, in a RICO thing. He has to have about 2 or 3 people that join him in an enterprise with the sole and direct purpose to commit these crimes. And that was not so. There was not evidence of that. He was a successful person who set up music business, and he is a clothing business and so on, but got carried away as the enormous resources those things produced for him enable him to indulge his own twisted desires at a level most human beings cannot even imagine. And that's what happened. So that is not a RICO. The other thing is that with the charges he had for shooting up the nightclub, with the video of the beating of Cassie and so on, I did not expect that the judge will give him bail. I expected the judge to say, X amount of years, begin your sentence directly from the courtroom. That's what I think is going to happen to Sean Diddy Combs. And so far, I've seen nothing to change my view.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think at the end of the day, I think that we would, we always have to have compassion, right? For anyone, and we see him. But I do think that if we don't admit that this person has done harm and that has perpetuated a level of violence and sent a message, right? And, it is not a good thing to see him literally kicking and dragging her. And if this is what was caught on camera and then he bought the money in order to pay them off, right? Like this is who this person is. And I think it's important for us to talk about what made him and more importantly, also, how do we address the deeper culture, that there's a culture of the sexualization, that there's a culture of a lack of intimacy, there's a culture where people don't want to talk about love, right? Black love is very real. It is real. Like we do love each other and we have always loved on each other. But this sexual exploitation piece is also real, that there's a lot of people, right, who this is how they, this is how they live their life. And I don't see him, I don't know personally the judge or anything, but I don't see the judge being lenient on him in any way at the end of the day, because I do think he wants to send a message, even though he wasn't charged with the bigger, racketeering. I'm pretty sure the judge wants to send a message, right? That this is not something that is, that is allowed, given also we've had the Epstein trial, we've seen these, cases. And also, I feel like if this is an opportunity also for people to talk to their girls and their boys. Like, let's not make it a conversation and say it's just a conversation for boys. Definitely. It's also a conversation for our girls as well as our boys, right? Like, let's not miss this opportunity as a community.
Yeah, it's a conversation. And this is Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom, and I'm here with Dr. Selma Bartholomew and also our brother, Isaac Ferguson, from WBAI, and we are just recounting, because we have to, on the Sean Puffy Combs situation that has happened. And basically, we have to understand that we are in a Babylon. This is a time of Babylon. That is what is going on. And we cannot be silent. We know that none of this is correct. It is not correct for anybody. And it is a teaching opportunity. It is a moment of opportunity, because there's a lot of opportunists in this. It's a Sean Puffy Combs who has the money, but it's also women who want the money. And they think that this is a way to get this. And my thing is, with all of this money and the community of Black people suffering and being what we've gone through, coming across the water against our will, both in South America, North America, and Central America. And there is this abundance, and it has been using for, sex, objects, cars, houses. This is disgusting. And that is what, to me, we need to speak about. There needs to be training. There needs to be consciousness. Every time we hear this music, talking about killing people, talking about doing drugs, talking about calling women bees, people, we need to stand up. I believe the woman's name was Dolores Tucker. She's passed on, but she was out there, front and center. Reverend Calvin Butts was out there front and center, rolling over tracks and things. So we've got to begin to take this stand, because the society is falling apart because of this. And it's not only him. We've got to look at a President Clinton. Look what happened with that. And that was
Yeah.
public front and center. You know, there are many, Donald Trump, who no matter that he did or said all these things to women, he had a porn star that had a thing against him. And he still became a president, celebrated, throwing his money around, you know. And the other situation, I'm not excusing anybody doing this, but and race, when it comes to race, Bill Cosby, you know, he was out there in different ways. You know, we don't know all the facts or details. I'm not an attorney, but what I do know is I saw Bill Cosby shackled in an orange jumpsuit
Yes.
in his 70s or 80s, with chains on his feet and his hands. I haven't seen
The
it
hospital.
for a white person who did this kind of crimes. So
Well,
we got to look at it on a lot of levels, and we've got to begin to take a stand to make a change in this world.
Yes,
So,
I want to emphasize what yourself and Dr. Selma has said, that this is a teaching moment.
Mhm.
And it's a moment that should be very, very valuable to parents and guardians. It is a moment where the conversation is about values. Do you remember your mother or your grandmother saying to you, what does the buffet profit a man if he gains the whole world but suffers the loss of his own soul?
Mm.
Remember that?
Yes.
Plenty of us mothers and grandmothers would say that to us, wouldn't they?
Mhm.
That's the moment we're in. That's the moment what has happened to Sean Combs shines the spotlight on and beckons us to evaluate as a way of teaching and guiding our young adults.
Yeah, it's very, very critical. And I'm actually glad, and I think it's very important that we're having this conversation, because we have to be honest. We cannot turn a blind eye with these kinds of things going on. And even in the R. Kelly situation, everybody's got to take responsibility. You know, if someone has taken my daughter and they got her locked up in there against my will or not, they're not going to be able to pay me money for that going to happen. And somehow I'm breaking that door down and I'm getting my child. You know what I'm saying? So we got to look at people taking responsibility for allowing these predators. And this happens across races. You know what I'm saying? But we've got to begin to look at that. We know that there's even abuse internal in people's families, you know. So we have a lot.
I think you hit it though about the money and where people are in terms of how do they feel and how do they show up and their sense of confidence in the world, right? You hit it so beautifully. Yeah, when people feel like if they're always, you know, not receiving the voice and the space for themselves, and just feeling so ashamed, right? Feeling ashamed and not necessarily really fighting for your loved one, saying, no, this is not acceptable. Because even, and I do want to, you know, let's also honor Cassie and her, right? Her willingness to still come out and have this conversation publicly. She's a mom now. And that she was brave enough to have this conversation, because he definitely knew how to manipulate. He knew how to abuse, right? That even her own mother couldn't find the courage and say, wait a minute, this man is literally asking me to give him money in order to, you know, to keep my daughter safe. And she didn't go to the police. She didn't, right? All of these things. So it is a culture, as you mentioned, of money, a culture where money is perpetuating this level of violence. And I do know that people, we're experiencing it. I want to say that very clearly. Yes, he's got money, but there are people who are doing this same sense of this abuse and, you know, stalking individuals, using videos against people. It happens no matter the income. He just had money, so he could able to hide it in a particular way. But there's a certain ethos in our culture where this is happening all the time. I see so many of our young girls as a result of these weed buses and this culture that's engaging in gang sex, engaging in being, you know, in that being sex trafficked. and we're not talking about it. And so I thank you again for making the space to say that this is not allowed. And how do we now very organized push back against this industry, push back and really say we want to hear better voices. We want to hear from those individuals who are bringing more of a positive message to our young people, and also keeping them safe, We're not really, I'm in the Bronx, I'm in the city. We've got, 24-hour, spots open 24 hours. What are you doing open 2, 3, 4 a.m.? It has become this normalization that we think that these behaviors are normal. It's not normal. And it's time to really love on ourselves and also speak about the fact that it's okay to love. No one is saying that. It's okay to love each other.
I want to, so I have just one more comment about this. Sean Diddy Combs, I think, I have a lot to say, but I don't need to say more. But this morning on What's Going On show, I didn't host it, another host today.
Okay.
There was a discussion of the fact that there's some suggestion that the Mann Act, which is a law made decades ago, it was used against Jack Johnson. It's a law against transporting people across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. It was used to break down and destroy the first heavyweight black champion of the world, Jack Johnson. Remember that?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there's some suggestion that that law needs to be updated. Their loopholes need to be changed. And the shocking suggestion is that it should be called the Sean Diddy Combs Act or law. I don't think so at all. I think they shouldn't be immortalizing Sean Diddy Combs. The real true hero in this is Cassie Ventura.
Yes.
And I don't think her name should be put to that law anyway. But if anyone should be immortalized for their heroism, their bravery, their courage in bringing this matter to the forefront, to the public eye, so we can evaluate and set directions for our youths, it is Cassie Ventura. And I thank her for her courage. She is the true hero in this, not Sean Combs.
And I, once again, and this is Harlem Network News, and I'm Terri Wisdom. Once again, this is money that most of us can't imagine, haven't touched, and are not a part of. And I salute Cassie for coming out. I salute her for standing strong. But I also know that she received $20 million, okay, in settlements or whatever, okay? And so to me, all of this playing on the national stage, on the world stage, it's a money game. It's a money game. And that is what we have to look at. This is what we have to be concerned about. And just even in the sense that the major media is having a field day with this. They're not talking about anything about consciousness, about change, about this, about that. I don't know Sean Combs personally. Obviously, he had a moment in court. And anyone who is doing all of these things, as they make people have public, whatever it's called when you have to go to like public service for crimes you did, all these people, is jail, but they also need to have to go through some kind of training or some kind of something. This is the kinds of things we have to do in this society, and we got to make a lot of changes. So closing words on.
But I also want to say, I mean, once again, I want to be clear. I think that this is who this person is. When they show his kids outside of the court, outside with loud music, doing push-ups and things like that, it says to me that this is a culture, right? That this is how he parents, this is what his deep values are. And we have to be very careful. I think you're absolutely right, as a community, of holding individuals up. Yes, he's money, and yes, it is about, he's got this entrepreneurial spirit, right, which we all admire, and was able to rise as a result of the music, being very talented. Let's not take his talent away in terms of the music, as you mentioned, that beat. But it's also really important to also talk about, right, like this is an important parenting moment. It certainly is an important moment to talk also about the sexualization of our children. but
Yes.
also what it means in the nature of our relationships. I don't think that people see this as, when this is what they put out, Ms. Wisdom, as you talk about Harlem Network News, we have to admit that the media is not going to educate us. Like, we finally have to admit that mainstream media fundamentally will not do this. They have no incentive to change course. They might do a special or whatever, but we thank you for you. We thank goodness for, we thank God for WBAI for making a space, because we can no longer expect these individuals to change course. And it is not, power concedes nothing without a demand. They have no reason to change course and to talk much more about how this happened and how to prevent it. They don't want to. They don't want to. They want to continue to make money off of exploitation. And we have to sooner or later just say this and be okay with this and not keep expecting them to have this public conversation. They can't have it, and they won't have it.
Well, this is for our community. This is not for them.
Yeah.
This teaching moment, this discussion is for our community, so we can better ourselves and our children. We really shouldn't be too concerned what they're going to do what the major media do, which is to make money, build people up and tear them down. They make money on the way up, they make money on the way down. That's their purpose. The corporate world is set up to make money. And that's it, not to promote values.
But I think at a point, when the society falls apart and when things are destroyed, and when their children, like our children, are impacted, and their children won't be impacted as greatly because they can booster them and bolster it with money. So we have a lot to unpack. And like I said, I'm very grateful that we've been able to have this conversation right here on Harlem Network News, because it's a different conversation than we're hearing about mainstream media. The details are important, but it's bigger than the details. And he's not the only person in the world that has dragged a woman down and beat her. There are people who have killed their wives. We have a huge issue of domestic violence in this country. And it goes across race, it goes across economics. There are issues of domestic violence. A lot of it is perpetuated onto women, but men have experienced it as well. Oh, yeah. So there's a crux of domestic violence, which hides, and a lot of it is secretive. You see people in the street looking like everything's fine, but behind closed doors, they've been being beat down. Okay. And if they're not beat down physically, there's a lot of going beat down financially and economically, and people controlling people within a family, within a marriage, with money. So it's a lot going on. We just saw this. And because he's a big celebrity, they're going to play it over and over again. Yeah. But
and none of them have called it that. And I'm so glad that you have put it in that category, right? None of the media has actually said that this was actually domestic violence, and that how does this, what are the lessons learned from it? So very well said. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Okay. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a closing statement on the Combs situation. And we're going to come back in, if you have the time, and speak about budget and so on and so forth, so that the audiences can unpack this and be able to digest it, because that's very, very important.
Yes, very, very important. Well, I'm quite ready to talk about the budget I studied. I got excerpts.
Okay, you're ready. Okay, good.
There are a lot of important things here regarding what the money is being allocated to what. I don't see Harlem being mentioned much. In fact, I didn't see one mention of Harlem in this budget. Although they think that would touch Harlem or not touch Harlem. So, I'm very eager to talk with you about that anytime you want.
Okay. So we're going to continue this. What I'm going to do, and I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News. We have had an extremely robust conversation on the Sean Puffy Combs event, him receiving 2 charges yesterday, him not receiving bail, and that's because letters were written by Cassie and by another one of his staff saying that they were afraid he's violent. So they're not letting him out on bail. However, when the sentencing comes, there will be a decision made. He has done a lot of time served, but as Dr. Selma Bartholomew said, and as our brother Isaac of WBAI said, we have got to use this as a teachable moment, as an opportunity for change. This has to do with our society. It has to do with our government. It has to do with everything and us personally. So I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. So I would like to be able to close this out.
Yes.
And let you all come back in and let us talk about the budget. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, okay. So I'm going to close it out because I want people to be able to hear what we're saying. I don't want the budget to be at the back of it because we spoke for a long time, but it was important. It was important that we did this. Okay. This is our, as you said, this is for us. This is, and it's for everyone because mainstream media is doing what they do and we are mandated to do what we know we need to do.
100%.
So thank you very much, Harlem Network News. Please support us, harlemnetworknews.com, 646-261-5397, and harlemnetworknews@gmail.com. We need your support. Black businesses matter, Black media matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and I'm going to send you all something to come back.